California real estate has long been the American dream wrapped in sunshine and palm trees, but beneath the glossy postcards and tech boom headlines lies a crumbling foundation that prospective homebuyers are only beginning to understand. The Golden State's housing market isn't just expensive, it's a slow-burning fuse attached to over-leveraged municipalities, climate disasters, mass exodus trends, and economic models built on industries that are rapidly contracting. While median home prices hover near $800,000 statewide, certain cities have become pressure cookers of unsustainable costs, deteriorating infrastructure, rising crime, and population decline so severe that property values are poised not for correction, but for collapse. Insurance companies are fleeing, tax bases are eroding, water supplies are vanishing. These aren't temporary setbacks, they're structural cracks impossible to ignore. What follows are the 9 California cities most dangerously poised to devastate homebuyers as the state's housing illusion unravels in 2026. Number 9. Stockton. Stockton markets itself as an affordable alternative to the Bay Area, a place where families priced out of San Francisco can finally afford a yard and a garage. In reality, Stockton is a cautionary tale of what happens when a city's economic foundation crumbles while housing prices remain stubbornly inflated. The median home price sits around $485,000 as of early 2026, a figure that seems almost reasonable by California standards, but this masks a brutal truth. Stockton declared bankruptcy in 2012, the largest American city to do so at the time, and the scars have never healed. The city's violent crime rate remains 95% higher than the national average, with property crime spiking 18% between 2023 and 2025. Gang activity persists in multiple neighborhoods, and police response times have stretched to averages exceeding 12 minutes for priority 2 calls. Infrastructure crumbles visibly. Potholed streets, aging water systems prone to contamination scares, and underfunded schools that rank in California's bottom quartile. The tax base continues to erode as middle-class families flee to Nevada and Texas, leaving behind concentrations of poverty that now affect 19% of residents. Major employers like Amazon warehouses offer low-wage work with brutal turnover rates exceeding 150% annually, creating job market instability that ripples through the housing sector. Foreclosure rates in Stockton neighborhoods like Weston Ranch and Seaport have climbed 23% since 2024, a canary in the coal mine that signals deeper distress. The San Joaquin Delta location brings another threat: flooding risk that insurance actuaries are now pricing into skyrocketing premiums when coverage can be found at all. Buying a house in Stockton means anchoring yourself to a city that has already proven it cannot manage its finances, cannot protect its residents, and cannot maintain the basic infrastructure that makes home ownership worthwhile. And when the next economic downturn arrives, Stockton's housing market will be among the first to crater, leaving homeowners trapped in properties worth far less than they paid. Number 8. Barstow. Barstow enjoys a certain romance as a desert stopover on Route 66, a nostalgic gateway between Los Angeles and Las Vegas that conjures images of roadside Americana. Dig a little deeper, and Barstow reveals itself as an economic dead zone, where homebuyers are purchasing into a future of declining prospects and escalating climate catastrophe. With median home prices around $295,000, Barstow appears enticingly affordable, but this reflects a market that has recognized what many buyers have not. The city has no sustainable economic engine. The Marine Corps logistics base provides some employment, but the broader job market is dominated by transient service work at truck stops, fast food chains, and budget motels, low-wage positions with zero growth trajectory. Unemployment hovers near 9%, more than double the state average, and has remained stubbornly elevated for years. The city's population has been essentially flat since 2015, a stagnation that speaks volumes in a state where dynamic cities grow and dying ones shrink. Barstow is dying. Summer temperatures now regularly exceed 115 degrees Fahrenheit, part of a brutal trend that has seen average highs climb 3.2 degrees Fahrenheit since 2000, making the city increasingly uninhabitable during half the year. Water scarcity is not a distant threat, but a present reality. The Mojave Water Agency has implemented strict rationing, and projections show groundwater depletion rates that could make residential water costs prohibitive within a decade. Crime rates remain 47% above national averages, concentrated in property theft and methamphetamine-related offenses that plague the I-15 corridor. The school system ranks among California's worst, with proficiency rates in math and reading that barely crack 25%. Homebuyers are not investing in a community with potential. They are buying into a climate-doomed outpost whose primary function as a waypoint between more desirable locations will only accelerate as autonomous vehicles and electric charging networks reduce the need for human stops altogether. When extreme heat events, water emergencies, and economic stagnation converge, Barstow homeowners will discover that affordability was never a bargain. It was a warning no one heeded. Number 7. Adelanto. Adelanto promotes itself as a city of opportunity, touting its massive land area and proximity to Southern California's logistics boom as selling points for buyers seeking space and investment potential. Beneath the surface, Adelanto is a municipal disaster, a corruption-plagued, infrastructure-starved desert tract where homeownership is a gamble on a city that has repeatedly proven it cannot govern itself. Median home prices hover around $340,000, reflecting a market that has yet to fully price in the catastrophic risks accumulating here. Between 2018 and 2023, Adelanto's mayor, city manager, and multiple council members faced federal corruption charges related to bribery schemes involving cannabis businesses, a scandal that revealed a city government operating more like an organized crime syndicate than a public trust. The city's budget remains chronically strained, with essential services like road maintenance, parks, and public safety operating on shoestring allocations that leave vast swaths of the 56-square-mile city feeling abandoned. Crime rates have surged 31% since 2022, driven by property theft, illegal dumping, and gang activity that thrives in under-policed neighborhoods. The much-hyped logistics and warehouse sector that was supposed to revitalize Adelanto has brought mostly low-wage jobs with grueling conditions, while the promised tax revenue has been siphoned off by mismanagement and debt service. Water infrastructure is alarmingly fragile. The city relies on groundwater wells that are depleting faster than they recharge, and summer temperatures that now routinely hit 112 degrees Fahrenheit are accelerating evaporation and demand. Schools perform disastrously, with fewer than 30% of students meeting state standards in core subjects, guaranteeing that families with means will leave as children reach school age. The cannabis industry that initially attracted investment has become a patchwork of quasi-legal operations that contribute minimally to city coffers while attracting crime. Buying a home in Adelanto is betting on a city with no functional leadership, collapsing infrastructure, and an economic model built entirely on exploiting cheap desert land for industries that offer residents nothing but blight. And when water costs spike and corruption scandals return, property values will plunge as buyers finally recognize that no amount of space is worth chaining yourself to a failed municipality. Number 6. San Bernardino. San Bernardino once stood as a rail hub and logistics powerhouse, a blue-collar city with working-class pride and economic momentum fueled by Southern California's inland growth. In reality, San Bernardino has become a poster child for urban decay, fiscal collapse, and the brutal consequences of deindustrialization. And yet median home prices still hover near $420,000, a figure that will seem obscene in retrospect when the market corrects. The city declared bankruptcy in 2012, emerging in 2017 with debts restructured but fundamental problems left unaddressed. Crime remains catastrophically high, with violent crime rates 91% above national averages and property crimes that make entire neighborhoods uninsurable. Gang violence, particularly involving rival sets across the city's sprawling geography, has resulted in homicide rates that have climbed 27% since 2023. The police department operates chronically understaffed, with officer vacancies exceeding 20% and response times that have left residents functionally unprotected. Infrastructure is visibly collapsing. Roads pocked with craters, parks strewn with homeless encampments, public facilities shuttered due to maintenance backlogs measured in decades. The school district ranks among California's absolute worst, with proficiency rates barely reaching 20% and campuses plagued by violence, teacher shortages, and facilities that resemble detention centers more than learning environments. Employment opportunities are grim. Warehouses offer backbreaking work at $16 to $18 per hour with no benefits, while professional jobs have fled to more stable Inland Empire cities like Riverside or Ontario. The tax base continues eroding as middle-class families exit in accelerating numbers, leaving behind concentrations of poverty now affecting nearly 25% of residents. Climate pressures are mounting. Summer temperatures averaging 102 degrees Fahrenheit are becoming deadlier, and the city's antiquated electrical grid has experienced brownouts during heat waves that immobilize entire neighborhoods. Insurance companies have begun redlining San Bernardino zip codes, citing crime, fire risk from homeless encampments, and earthquake vulnerability. Buying a home here means investing in a city that has already failed once, has made no meaningful reforms, and is careening toward another physical catastrophe that will leave homeowners holding assets worth a fraction of their purchase price in a city that cannot protect them, educate their children, or maintain the roads they drive on. Number 5. Ridgecrest. Ridgecrest positions itself as a hidden gem for those seeking small-town tranquility and defense sector stability, anchored by the nearby China Lake Naval Air Weapons Station that employs thousands of engineers and military personnel. Beneath the surface, Ridgecrest is an isolated, earthquake-ravaged desert outpost where homeownership means betting on a single industry economy in one of California's most seismically active and climatically hostile zones. Median home prices sit around $315,000, appearing affordable until you understand what you're actually buying into. In July 2019, Ridgecrest experienced a 6.4 magnitude earthquake followed by a 7.1 magnitude quake, the largest to hit Southern California in 2 decades, that damaged thousands of structures and revealed that the city sits on fault lines capable of catastrophic destruction at any moment. 5 years later, many properties still carry hidden structural damage that wasn't fully repaired, creating a shadow inventory of compromised homes being sold to unsuspecting buyers. Earthquake insurance in Ridgecrest now costs upwards of $3,200 annually, with massive deductibles, when it's available at all, making homeownership financially untenable for many. The city's economy is frighteningly dependent on China Lake, and any federal budget cuts to defense spending or base realignments would trigger instant economic collapse, a vulnerability that has grown more acute as Department of Defense priorities shift. Summer temperatures now regularly exceed 108 degrees Fahrenheit, part of a warming trend that has made the Mojave Desert increasingly uninhabitable, with projections showing average highs could reach 115 degrees by 2035. Water comes from rapidly depleting groundwater aquifers, with the Indian Wells Valley experiencing overdraft conditions that threaten long-term viability. The city is geographically isolated, located 2 hours from Bakersfield and 3 from Los Angeles, meaning amenities, healthcare, and cultural opportunities require major travel. The school system is mediocre at best, with limited options that drive families with means to relocate as children age. Crime rates, while not catastrophic, have been climbing, particularly property crimes and domestic violence incidents that spike during economic stress periods. The housing market has virtually no liquidity. Selling a Ridgecrest home can take 6 months or longer, and buyers are almost exclusively other China Lake employees, creating a closed loop that offers zero escape velocity when circumstances change. Purchasing property in Ridgecrest means accepting that you are one earthquake, one base closure announcement, or one unbearable summer away from owning a home that no one will buy, in a city with no economic alternatives, in a climate that is actively trying to kill you. Number 4. El Centro. El Centro bills itself as the agricultural heart of the Imperial Valley, a productive desert region transformed by irrigation into fertile farmland that feeds millions. In reality, El Centro is a climate catastrophe waiting to fully manifest, an economically stagnant border city where summer heat has become legitimately life-threatening and where home buyers are purchasing into conditions that will soon be uninsurable and possibly uninhabitable. Median home prices hover near $325,000, a figure that fails to account for the accelerating climate exodus that will leave these properties stranded. El Centro routinely records the highest temperatures in the United States. Summer averages now exceed 107 degrees Fahrenheit, with individual days reaching 122 degrees Fahrenheit, part of a trend that has seen the city warm 4 degrees since 1980. These are not abstract statistics. They are temperatures that kill. Emergency room visits for heat-related illness have surged 67% since 2020, and cooling costs make homes functionally unlivable without air conditioning running continuously from May through October, pushing summer electricity bills past $600 monthly. The Salton Sea, located 30 miles north, is evaporating and exposing toxic lake bed that creates dust storms laden with pesticides, heavy metals, and carcinogens, particulate matter that blows directly into El Centro, creating air quality that ranks among North America's worst. Respiratory illness rates have climbed 41% in the last 5 years. The economy remains desperately poor, with median household income barely reaching $48,000 and poverty rates affecting 23% of residents. Employment is dominated by seasonal agricultural work and border services, creating chronic instability. The school system struggles with outcomes that reflect deep poverty. Fewer than 35% of students meet state standards. Border proximity brings challenges that range from immigration enforcement tensions to cross-border crime networks that have driven property crime rates 38% above state averages. Infrastructure is inadequate, with roads damaged by agricultural truck traffic and water systems dependent on Colorado River allocations that are shrinking every year as Lake Mead and Lake Powell drop to historic lows. Insurance companies are actively withdrawing from the Imperial Valley, citing climate risk, with homeowner policies becoming prohibitively expensive or simply unavailable. The city's population has been flat for a decade, a stagnation that speaks to a place people leave rather than move to. Buying a home in El Centro means investing in a region that is becoming climatically uninhabitable, where insurance costs will soon exceed mortgage payments, where the economy offers no upward mobility, and where the combination of heat, air pollution, and water scarcity will eventually trigger a collapse in property values so severe that homeowners will be forced to simply abandon properties that have become impossible to sell. And that moment is arriving far sooner than anyone wants to admit. Number 3. Clearlake. Clearlake presents itself as an affordable lakeside paradise, a Northern California refuge where Bay Area refugees can afford waterfront property and enjoy a slower pace of life, surrounded by natural beauty. Dig a little deeper, and Clearlake emerges as one of California's most economically devastated small cities, a poverty-stricken enclave ravaged by wildfire risk, contaminated water, and a methamphetamine epidemic that has turned entire neighborhoods into open-air drug markets. Median home prices sit around $245,000, California's cheapest waterfront. But this reflects a market that has correctly assessed that these properties are nearly worthless. Clearlake's violent crime rate is 287% higher than the national average, making it one of the most dangerous small cities in America. Methamphetamine use and manufacturing have created a public health catastrophe, with overdose deaths climbing 78% between 2021 and 2025, and property crimes driven by addiction making vehicle theft and burglary almost routine. The police department is understaffed and overwhelmed, with response times often exceeding 30 minutes for non-life-threatening calls. The economy is functionally non-existent. Unemployment hovers near 11%, and available jobs are minimum wage service positions with no benefits. Median household income sits at $36,000. Poverty affects 28% of residents, and the city has no major employers or economic development prospects. Schools rank among California's worst, with proficiency rates below 25% and campuses plagued by violence and chronic absenteeism. Clearlake itself, the body of water that theoretically justifies the city's existence, has become increasingly toxic. Algae blooms fueled by agricultural runoff create cyanobacteria that make swimming dangerous and have killed dogs and fish in massive die-offs. Water quality advisories are now routine during summer months. Wildfire risk is existential. The region has burned repeatedly in the last decade, with the 2015 Valley Fire destroying hundreds of homes and the 2018 Mendocino Complex Fire becoming California's largest on record. Insurance costs have quadrupled for those who can find coverage at all, and major carriers like State Farm and Allstate have withdrawn entirely from Lake County. The city's tax base is so anemic that basic services are inadequate. Roads crumble, parks are unmaintained, and public facilities are shuttered. Infrastructure like water treatment and sewage systems operate on deferred maintenance that threaten contamination events. The housing stock itself is largely dilapidated mobile homes and aging structures that would require massive investment to bring to habitability. Buying property in Clearlake means volunteering to live in a community that has been abandoned by the economy, savaged by addiction, and marked by insurers as uninsurable. And when the next major wildfire sweeps through, or when contamination makes the water completely unusable, homeowners will discover that their lakeside dream was a trap that has left them owning worthless structures in a failed city that offers no escape and no future. Number 2. Needles. Needles enjoys a certain desert mystique, a Colorado river town on Route 66 that serves as California's eastern gateway, a last outpost before Arizona that promises affordable living and natural recreation. In reality, Needles is a climate emergency in slow motion, an economically gutted town where temperatures have reached levels incompatible with sustained human habitation, and where buying a home means investing in a community that is literally being cooked to death. Median home prices hover around $205,000, the kind of affordability that should immediately trigger alarm rather than interest. Needles routinely records the highest temperatures in California. Summer averages now exceed 109 degrees Fahrenheit, with July 2023 seeing a stretch of 13 consecutive days above 118 degrees Fahrenheit and individual readings hitting 125 degrees Fahrenheit. These are temperatures where human bodies begin to fail, where touching a steering wheel causes burns, where asphalt melts, and where power grids buckle under cooling demand. Heat-related deaths have climbed 340% since 2020, a mortality rate that reflects a town where air conditioning is not a comfort, but a life support system. Electricity costs during summer months routinely exceed $500 for even modest homes running AC continuously, and blackouts during heat waves have left residents in conditions that constitute a medical emergency. The economy is non-existent beyond the handful of gas stations and fast food outlets serving highway traffic. Unemployment sits near 12%, and the closure of several motels and truck stops since 2022 has eliminated jobs with nothing replacing them. The population has declined 18% since 2010, a collapse that reflects reality. People are leaving Needles because it is becoming unlivable. Schools are dismal, with fewer than 22% of students meeting state standards, and facilities that struggle with basics like air conditioning that actually functions. The Colorado River, which theoretically offers recreation, is at historic lows, with Lake Havasu dropping so severely that boat launches are high and dry, and shorelines have receded hundreds of yards. Water quality has deteriorated as concentrations of salts and agricultural chemicals have intensified. Wildfire smoke from Arizona and Nevada blazes routinely blankets the town, creating air quality emergencies that last weeks. Property crime has surged as economic conditions deteriorate, with break-ins and theft becoming commonplace. The town has no hospital. The nearest emergency room is 23 miles away in Arizona, meaning any serious medical event requires a desperate drive through some of the hottest terrain on Earth.
insurance companies have begun outright refusing to write policies in Needles, citing climate risk and property crime, leaving buyers forced into California's Insurer of Last Resort program at triple the cost with minimal coverage. Infrastructure is crumbling. Water mains that date to the 1940s burst regularly, and the town lacks resources to replace them. The housing stock is ancient mobile homes and aging stucco houses that offer virtually no insulation against heat. Buying in Needles means purchasing a property that you will be unable to insure, unable to cool affordably, and unable to sell when you realize your mistake. And as climate conditions continue deteriorating and the town's population continues its terminal decline, Needles will become California's first climate-abandoned municipality, leaving homeowners stranded with structures that have been rendered worthless not by market forces, but by the planet itself.
Number 1. California City. California City presents itself as a master-planned community with ambitions to rival Los Angeles, a vast desert canvas with thousands of acres of subdivided streets awaiting development and homes being sold at prices that seem too good to be true. Beneath the surface, California City is the most spectacular real estate failure in American history, a ghost town masquerading as a city where buying property means investing in a delusional fantasy that was abandoned by reality decades ago. Median home prices sit around $285,000, but this figure is meaningless when applied to a development scheme that built 300 square miles of roads and infrastructure for a population that never materialized and never will. California City was conceived in 1958 as a utopian desert metropolis. Developers laid out streets, installed utilities, and plotted thousands of residential lots across a landscape larger than Los Angeles. They built virtually nothing else. Today, the city's actual populated area occupies less than 15% of its planned footprint, leaving hundreds of miles of paved streets that lead nowhere, connecting nothing to nothing, serving no one. The population sits around 14,000, virtually unchanged for decades, in a city designed for 400,000. The downtown consists of a handful of struggling shops and empty storefronts. There are no major employers, no economic base, no reason for anyone to move here beyond the cheap land. And that affordability exists precisely because the city is fundamentally valueless. Unemployment hovers near 13%, and available work consists of commutes to Edwards Air Force Base 30 miles away or minimum wage retail in Mojave. The school system is mediocre at best, serving a population too small to support adequate facilities or programs. Infrastructure is a cruel joke. Those hundreds of miles of roads require maintenance that the city cannot afford, creating a death spiral of deterioration. Water comes from rapidly depleting aquifers, with usage restrictions becoming increasingly severe. Summer temperatures exceed 105 degrees Fahrenheit routinely, with July averages climbing past 108 degrees Fahrenheit as climate change renders the Mojave increasingly hostile. Wind is constant and brutal, driving dust storms that sandblast anything exposed and creating air quality that aggravates respiratory conditions. Crime rates are climbing as economic conditions stagnate, with property crimes up 29% since 2022. The housing stock is a mixture of aging tract homes from the 1960s and 1980s and newer constructions that sit isolated in seas of vacant lots, creating neighborhoods that feel post-apocalyptic. Many properties are investor-owned, purchased for speculation that will never materialize, or bought by out-of-state buyers who visited once, saw desert and cheap prices, and failed to understand that California City is cheap because it is worthless. Resale is nearly impossible. Homes sit on the market for years, and those that sell often do so at losses. Insurance costs are skyrocketing due to wildfire risks from surrounding desert vegetation and the logistical challenges of providing emergency services across such a vast, empty geography. The city government is chronically broke, with a tax base that cannot support services for even its small population across such enormous infrastructure. There are no amenities. Entertainment, dining, shopping, healthcare, and culture all require 60 to 90-minute drives to Bakersfield or Lancaster. The master plan that justified California City's existence was a fantasy, a developer's fever dream that sold lots to speculators and dreamers who have been left holding deeds to land in a city that will never be, surrounded by streets that serve ghosts in a climate that is becoming uninhabitable. When you buy a house in California City, you are not investing in a community with potential. You are purchasing a monument to delusion, a property in a place that exists on maps but not in economic reality. And when the confluence of climate crisis, water scarcity, and fiscal collapse finally forces even the current residents to abandon this desert mirage, you will own a house on a paved street in the middle of absolutely nothing, worth nothing, serving no purpose except as a warning that affordability is sometimes just another word for worthless.